Out so far, a lot of great information, great speakers, and I know it's going to get better from here as well. I'm really excited for this session with, in my opinion, the two biggest leagues when it comes to licensing. That's right, we're going to talk with the NFL and the NBA. And all that incredible merchandise, the t-shirts, the caps, and the jackets, to bedding, to water bottles, toys, games, virtually anything you see with an NFL team logo or an NBA insignia is actually made, these people here are responsible for all of that merchandise that you see here, that you see in the stores at retail. I'm really happy to have a great panel of experts with decades of knowledge and experience, including a guest from the NFL International, because we all know that international is a very important part of sports licensing as well. So let me introduce our prestigious panelists. First, Lisa Peiken. I know she looks super young, but she's actually been with the NBA for 25 years. She's now the Senior Vice President of Global Partnerships at the NBA. Tony Chute, who's the Senior Manager of Consumer Products at the NFL for over 10 years. She currently heads up the hard lines at the NFL. And Angie Clift, who's the Senior Manager of International Consumer Products at the NFL. And that's a major growth pillar that we're going to talk about today. Now, I know a lot of you are going to have a lot of questions for this group, so I'm going to ask you, jot those questions down on your notepads. We're definitely making time for Q&A at the end, but we have a lot to cover. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephen Heller. I'm the president of the Brand Liaison, a leading licensing agency. I also just finished a 3-year tenure on the board of directors of Licensing International, the trade organization behind all of licensing and this great event here today. At the Brand Liaison, we represent both brands and manufacturers as licensees. For example, for this audience here, we represent Overtime Sports, a phenomenon in licensing. If you don't know Overtime, you're just too old. But we go Google Overtime, and you probably saw the SpongeBob collab last year or the Pokemon collaboration that just dropped this past weekend. And at Brand Liaison, all we do is licensing, including a lot of deals with the NBA and the NFL. So I'm really happy to be here with this group today. So I want to get started and jump right in and talk about sports licensing. And I'm going to start with Tony, which is a little bit dangerous because once she gets speaking, I don't think anybody else on the panel is going to get a chance to speak. But Tony, I mentioned hard lines in your intro, and Lisa, you cover many areas today at the NBA, apparel, accessories, that you led for many years. Can you explain to the audience, what's the difference between hard lines and soft lines, and how is licensing at the NFL organized?
Sure. So soft lines is apparel. Hard lines is in durable goods. So it's electronics, furniture, novelty items. And at the NFL, on the domestic side, it's led by our senior VP, Joe Bergerio, as well as our VP, Ryan Samuelson. We have many pillars under the consumer products group. The apparel side, which is Sean Green and Cy Koss. The hardline side, which is myself, Brandon Eddy, and Stacy Staccardo, as well as other pillars like gaming, on-field, and retail and club retail. And so I guess that's it.
And Lisa, is the NBA the same?
We're the same. I think we do apparel and sporting goods as one, that includes accessories. Then hard goods is divided into two. We have trading cards and collectibles, as well as like digital products, and then sort of your good old-fashioned tchotchke.
And all of those departments are under your umbrella today?
No, they're my counterparts. I oversee apparel, sporting goods, and commerce globally.
Excellent.
And WNBA. We got
And WWA is very important as well. And Angie, NFL International, similar structure?
Similar. So we're a global team now. Our group, the international side, is led by Salah Latif, the VP of International Consumer Products. Our group looks after all markets outside of the U.S. We're broken out by region or market. So we have someone that looks after Canada, someone that looks after Latin America and Mexico. He's in the room today. Hi, Alex. And then we have another, Jessica Campbell is in our UK office, and she looks after all of Europe. I look after our emerging markets in Asia Pacific and the Middle East. And then we have another team member who looks after our event retail. So with as we expand and go into new markets and play games internationally, the event retail piece is really important. So our group handles that as well.
And I want to get back to international. Again, it's a growth pillar for both of the leagues. But let's start with the domestic and focusing really on licensees and the licensing application process, because I know we have so many clients and so many people come up to us, how do I get a license with the NBA or the NFL? So, Tony, tell us really what's involved in the NFL application process. How does a company go about applying for an NFL license?
For sure. So we asked potential partners to go on to NFL.biz and fill out the potential licensee application. From there, you're providing all the information that you need in regards to what products you're proposing to have this license for. And there you're able to dictate out, what the product you're looking to do, what are your distribution channels that you currently have for each in, as well as where do you think this product would potentially be selling at, as well as what's your marketing plan behind it, as well as any other storytelling that you want to include to really help us get a better idea of what this product is. And with that, we also ask for 2 years of audited financial statements or tax returns. And so that's really a pivotal piece that we're seeing a lot of applications come in without. So definitely need that to be able to move forward your license.
Well, we know it's such a competitive process. What makes a good candidate, or what are the criteria that you look for? How does a company stand out in this application process?
Yeah, so we're looking for established brands as well as great companies that have great distribution and established licensing as well. If they're already working with the entertainment properties or another sporting league, we at least are very comfortable that they understand what the landscape is going to demand versus somebody coming in who has no licensing experience and really, just trying to learn sports licensing in general. I think we all can agree that it's behemoth to get into sports licensing in general. You're dealing with so many different teams, so many different regionalities that, you have to be strategic in terms of what you're releasing to the market. But yeah, with that, it's, looking at bigger brands who has great marketing behind the product that they're doing. Or are we looking at brands that are, trending right now that may not have that licensing piece, but are, the most searched objects on the internet type thing.
So innovative product or brands that really stand out. And Lisa, talk to it from the MBA. What's a good candidate? How does a company stand out?
Similarly, I think we look, is it incremental, right? What are you bringing to the table? Do you have a robust direct-to-consumer business? What is the proposed distribution? Is it unique and interesting products that we might not be currently playing in? So we look and see, what can you bring to us? And of course, they need to be an established company at the same time, but really we're looking for new and interesting and exciting.
And for either of you, can you give us some examples over the last couple of years of a company that applied that you might not have known and really stood out in your minds?
Sure. Ridge Wallet actually was one. They approached us and actually did not have any licensing experience. But what they did say is we are the #1 searched wallet on the internet. There's something here. And really, they've been a great partner. And, we've been very happy with working with them.
And for you, Lisa?
We have a few. I think Pro Standard was somebody that many people had not heard of not that long ago. They kind of came in as a challenger brand and have really just done an amazing job of servicing the market and creating new and innovative products. So that's one that we're pretty proud of. And I shout out to Janae from Amazon on that one. And then also just some of our fashion collaborations that we have going on right now. We've done with Kith in New York or New York or Nowhere. And most recently, Fear of God has been a really fun one.
So, and Pro Standard in a very competitive space are an apparel licensee, and they really took on some of the bigger players that were there before them. So these are all big companies you mentioned, like Pro Standard and Kith. And um, can you tell us what the NBA does for smaller emerging companies? It's really unique what they've created.
So we have an incubator program called NBA Lab. So if you don't have the financials or if you have a concept that's interesting but no real proof of concept, we will grant a favorable license to test and learn to see if this product is in fact viable. So we have partners, we've done everything from collectibles from our courts. So NBA, like we've taken old NBA courts, created them into picture frames and a variety of other products. It is proving to be successful. We've also partnered with a company called Hyperfly, that is an apparel company that has a lot of sort of heavy Asian influence in their designs. And that's so far so good there too. So, and we've had some that maybe have had less success, but we like to give anybody a shot.
So it's really unique for NBA that you can work with a smaller company. Are you doing anything like that on an international scale? How does a company, what are you looking for on a global scale from your licensees?
I think we have a wide variety. I mean, our international business is pretty robust, and we have over 200 stores globally. We're focusing on activating our global partners in a more meaningful way, and then partnering with the right expert in each country or region or market. So in that case, there's a lot of smaller LATAM only licensees or Brazil only licensees that we are working with.
So when it came to new licenses for the NBA and the NFL, innovative product, branding, certain ways of standing out, my big question is in today's retail environment, I know from a fashion standpoint, it's very tough to navigate higher end and specialty and off price and mass and e-commerce. The leagues seem to do this exceptionally well. You see NBA and NFL product at Walmart and Target and at Nordstrom's and Demons and Dick's Sporting Goods. How do you work with your licensees to navigate that retail environment?
It's differentiation by product. We similarly pick the best partner who can service, who understands that tier of distribution and knows how to navigate. To date, we had not seen, we've had the debate about what does Walmart or Target do to our upstairs business, and it does not do anything. Like it's all, there's something for everyone at the price point you're looking for. And as someone was saying earlier, like people are looking for very high end and people are looking for commodity. And so we just want to put products in the path of the consumer.
And Tony, I know your headlines, but are you seeing the same thing at NFL?
Yes, same thing. And it's making sure that we align with partners that can reach each price point and making sure that, we're aligning with those best in class partners that can, talk to the value channel or can play in the mass or better and make sure that they're not competing with each other.
And before we get into international, I just want to talk about what are your expectations? So when these companies apply for the license and they seem to make most of the criteria, whether it's you need product, you need branding, they have some experience, their sophisticated accounting systems can handle. What would happen next in the process and how long does that process take?
Yeah, sure. So when, we're aligning on a license, it really kind of depends on how fast the terms are going. But really what we're, focused on is, we want to make sure that we're aligning with partners that just don't slap the logo on the product. It's more than that. That is not going to just sell the product. So we need something that a little bit is more robust and more, 180 in the sense that they're touching marketing, they're laying out the plan for the year, and how are they going to be aggressively hitting the retailers and distribution channels that we're working with them on.
And how about marketing from your partners? So now if we've gotten the license and they may be significant advances and some high guarantees, what do you expect from your partners as far as marketing and go-to-market launches?
I mean, I think for us, as it's part of when we're ramping up on how we show up. Are we? Is there a certain retail destination that we want to lean into and spend some collective retail marketing dollars there to help promote the brand? We promote a lot through our social channels. So is there an incremental media spend to make sure we're pushing your brand out through our channels? Because our channels, we have a really young consumer, a really active social engagement, one of the largest of all the sports. So we just try to see, depending on the product, depending on the target consumer, what's the best way to speak to that fan.
And are you doing the same things, Lisa, on an international scale as well? Do you look for the same marketing because
Of the initiatives you're doing internationally?
It's a little bit different. I mean, whether it's through our own retail, where you're brought into the ecosystem and there's a larger muscle there, but with other third-party retailers, it's really about retail marketing.
And the
The
NBA,
size of the partnership too.
the NBA is doing a lot, or has been traditionally doing a lot internationally. Can you talk about how the NBA reaches out to fans worldwide? What are some of the initiatives from a game standpoint, from a fan engagement standpoint, that the NBA is doing internationally? First, what the NBA is doing, then we'll talk about the merch.
So we have what we call our global games. It's a couple of preseason games. So next year we've been going to Abu Dhabi. So we'll be back for our third season with the Sixers and the Knicks. We're going back to China for the first time since 2019, where we'll be in Macau with the Nets and the Suns. And then we'll always have a regular season game in both Europe and Mexico City. So growing the fandom is huge. And what we do is a lot of fan engagement, whether we call it NBA House or NBA Crossover, where the fans can come and engage with our brand. And then for us, content is huge. Of how are they consuming? Are we making sure we're putting out region-specific content to meet the people in those countries and cities?
And how does that translate into the licensing and the merchandise?
So as I mentioned, we have over 200 stores globally. We opened a store in Abu Dhabi a few years ago. We have a store in Paris where we were this past year. So the idea, we run a lot of events, retail events, whether it's player appearances or customization opportunities, or we work with Foot Locker in a lot of regions to help us sort of build up our events. So we try to give the fans as much of an NBA experience as possible when we're in there.
Incredible. And I love watching the NFL international game. It starts at 9 a.m. for me on the East Coast. But Angie, tell us, what has the NFL been doing internationally first from the game standpoint, and what can we expect in the future from a game and fan engagement?
Yeah, no, it's a very exciting time to be on the international side. I think as an organization, the NFL wants to be a global sport, and they want to be a top 3 favorite sport in our focus market. So how are we going to accomplish this? I mean, there's some key pillars. Number one, making it culturally relevant in the markets that we're going into, engaging with our fans there, increasing the participation of the sport. Flag is a huge opportunity for us, and it reaches different demographics, boys and girls, which is really exciting. Making the games accessible, and that's in partnership with our media partners, and then of course building really strong partnerships, and that's where consumer products and licensing comes into play. You may have seen that we've announced 2 new markets for this season. So we're going to Madrid, Spain, and we're also going to Dublin, Ireland. We'll be back in Sao Paulo, and then in Germany again, in a new city, Berlin, and then back to the UK at Tottenham and Wembley. And then right before Super Bowl, we announced a 2026 game in Australia. So for us, it's a dream. We have quite a big runway for product. And
So, Steve, you could tell Ahmad, this is global football.
yeah, so anyway, we'll be playing at the MCG, an iconic stadium. downtown Melbourne with it seats 100,000 people.
And so, in advance of these games all over the world now, how are you engaging with the fan base, of the consumers, the fan base in those markets to make sure they're primed and ready for those games?
Yeah, firstly, it's really important that our games are accessible. So that's, partnering with our media partners. Also creating, Lisa mentioned, like really innovative content. So that could be short or long, but, Netflix is a good example with the shows Quarterback and Receiver. We also played 2 games on Netflix on Christmas Day. So reaching that global audience is really important for us. Another way is flag. Flag football is huge. So, growing the participation of the sport. And flag gives us a great way to reach the younger demographic, the new generation of fans across boys and girls. It also helps us teach the game. Most people internationally aren't growing up with the NFL. So education is really key for us. And then local events, fan events. So we typically do events around our tentpole moments, like kickoff and Super Bowl. We'll host watch parties. We also typically have a consumer products component to those. So we'll have some type of personalization station or giveaways or something.
At the events?
At the event.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And so, do you see spikes in sales? Like, how does the merchandise correlate to the temple events and especially the local events around the world? Like, how do you see and base sales with that?
We definitely do. I mean, and like I mentioned at the top, event retail is huge for us, and a big part of what we do. So we definitely see a spike in retail sales and merch sales around those tentpole moments.
And have you noticed any trends where now the tail, like where that spike is continuing? Like, how do you keep that moment alive after the game?
Yeah, I mean, it's really these pillars. It's engaging with our fans and it's keeping the NFL top of mind. Doing we tell stories 360, all year round. We're telling different stories and the different tentpole moments have become bigger moments internationally. So draft has grown, schedule release with the international games and the announcement around schedule release has been a big moment for us. So just working on keeping the NFL top of mind in all of these international markets.
So this draft is big. Even now, the shows leading up to the draft, I was watching the workout competitions this week. And Lisa, are you seeing the same thing with as you're entering into these local markets, seeing these spikes, and how do you continue the engagement beyond?
Yeah, we would joke that like the circus would come to town but what's our leave behind? And so that's where we find our stores are helpful. Whatever media deal and content. The other piece that we do is we're really continuing to focus on grassroots efforts. So we set up clinics around our tentpoles as well. And these are all leap moments. So we're not just there and gone and never to be heard from again. We're going to continue to cultivate through retail, through content, through playing the actual game.
And we saw great statistics this morning from Alex about the engagement of players. Are you seeing a correlation of the local fan bases and the younger generation to actually playing more team sports because you're entering into these worldwide markets?
Yes, the game of basketball has grown significantly. By like Court of Gold. If anyone watched that was amazing. Basketball's growing. When we look even just at the Olympics, whether it was Canada and Serbia and France, like there's a lot of basketball being played, and so we're continuing to try to maintain those relationships from a basketball development standpoint because we know eventually they'll come into our ecosystem.
And are you seeing the same thing?
We're seeing the same, yeah. Across NFL flag, the participation has grown tremendously over the last few years. I think Alex mentioned to me this morning there's over 3 million kids playing in Mexico alone. So that's huge. And Australia is another example. When our GM relocated there 2 years ago and she got flag into schools, and if the pilot program was 6 schools, it's now up to 400. And that's just in 2 years. So we're definitely seeing the participation grow.
So I did want to make a couple of minutes for audience Q&A. Like I said, we're getting approached all the time, people looking at licensing. So do we have questions from the audience? I see a couple. Charles, of course.
It's a question for Lisa. Early in its history, I represented the Fulu brand, which did a co-brand with the NBA. Are you still doing co-brands, and what factors do you consider as to whether you want to do a co-brand? And that's sort of the second question, which wasn't sort of addressed in your application processes, and that is, do you ask your prospective licensees to give you projections, not just their past history, but projections of what they think they could do with your brand?
So yes, we do ask for sales projections with the app as part of the application process, like by channel. So if you're asking for, depending on the distribution channel, if you're asking for sporting goods, we'd like to see what kind of volume you would do there. So that is absolutely necessary as part of it. And understanding it's a guesstimate, but it is something that we need. And yet collaborations we are doing all the time, and I'm familiar with the food work that we had done. As I mentioned, like right now, the last one that we just dropped was Essentials Fear of God, and that was one of our more successful ones. But we're always looking to tell different stories with different brands. And just that one comes really interesting to us because the distribution was unique and it was primarily through their direct to consumer channel. But we're always talking to different brands on how we can do cool things.
I think collabs is a really interesting topic, and brand liaison, we represent FUBU, so thanks to the plug, Charles. But I think you also mentioned Hype Advice and some other collabs. Tony, what do you see as the most interesting collabs from NFL?
Sure. We're definitely doing a lot, on the apparel side. We definitely did stuff with Kit, OVO, and whatnot. But on the hardline side, really, what I most enjoyed was working with the big toy brands, so Mattel and Hasbro, especially the Mattel on the side where that really sparked from the emergence of a lot of women having more roles at the NFL. So with our first referee and athletic directors, how could we create, an NFL doll and a storybook behind that? That was the first idea that kind of got shut down, but then that opened the door for, a fanware with American Girl, and then opened the door for other brands within Mattel. So working with Little People, working with Uno, working with Barbie, and being able to create a program around a brand that not only touched one demographic, it reached the family and everybody in between.
And Angie, can you tell us about some of the collabs international?
Yeah, we do. So a lot of the collabs we do are global, and we see success when we can create a local, a local story around these collaborations. So OVO is a great example, and because Drake is from Toronto, we launched there and we saw a ton of success. We're able to, create a really cool marketing story that tied to the local audience.
Excellent. And then back to questions. Lori?
Hi, Lori Smith with the Brand Liaison. How do the leagues differentiate the brand by distribution channels? So there's a T-shirt potentially at Dick's for $45, a T-shirt similar but different quality and things like that at a $19 price point at Target. How do you do it from a brand diffusion or just price point and quality? Like, how do you convey that to the customer?
There's a few things. We do it sometimes by the marks. Like not every single logo that we have will go to the mass. We do it by embellishment, price value. We look at a lot of different elements to make sure that it is differentiated.
But it's not a different brand. So it's always NDA at the...
Well, tell us about Heartwood Classics, Etsy.
Yeah. One second. I would say, and we have NBA brand at the mass. There aren't a lot of brands that live across, and that's by their own doing of how they want to segment the marketplace. Heartwood Classics is something that we've built that is typically more high-end. We have not yet brought it to it's sporting goods is where it lives at best, but for the most part, it's been more elevated. And that's like the pain, the heritage to our history. And trying to continue to reevaluate what that means, because it's sometimes for us, for the NBA, we live and die by fashion trends. Our baseline continues to grow, which is always very helpful. But we're just coming off a very significant retro trend, so we need to cleanse the market for a minute.
And Tony and Angie, how about the NFL? Do you have any distribution strategies or branding strategies between the higher end specialty and lower end?
Yeah, it's just working amongst the partners and really more. Yeah, it's looking at the product and how it differentiates from each other.
But it's always the same NFL logo.
For the most, it's the team logos. Yes,
Yeah. But on the hang tags?
correct.
On the international side, our strategies vary by market. So depending how mature a market is really where we live at retail. If we're just going into a new market, we keep that NFL brand at a premium, at that higher price point. So that's kind of
Excellent. Okay, any more questions? I had one up front. Anush?
Thank you so much for your time. Anuj Satve at ESPN. Curious how you balance your partnerships in sponsorship and like your media partners and how they have. Curious how you guys are balancing sponsorship revenue with licensing revenue, and curious if there's any conflicts, overlaps, healthy competition internally and friction that you may encounter, and how do you deal with that?
So I don't even know how many years, about 6 years ago, we combined. We were the global merchandising group and the global partnership group, and we now are the global, the global partnership group. So we work really collaboratively with the sponsor. So for example, I manage our partnership with Nike, who is not only a licensee, but also a sponsor. So this morning, I was meeting with the Adidas account team. So we're all talking to each other to make sure we want to maximize revenue for the league, but understand what lanes everyone has. And then now with the new media landscape, we've already started to engage on what does it look like? What does the NBA on NBC look like versus Prime? So for the most part, there's not a lot of infighting.
Agreed, state. It's being very upfront with, what you can do on the licensing side versus what you can do on the sponsorship side, and managing that relationship in terms of, creating something that potentially we may have not had in the market, but really leaning into the sponsors and utilizing them as best in class to get that product out.
Great. So we only have a couple of minutes left. Any other questions? Got one more. Robbie.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen.
I know everybody in the room by first name.
Thank you for your time and for your insights. Same question for both the NBA and the NFL. Where are growth opportunities that you see, or white space that you see? Because you've got a lot of innovative companies in the room who, if they want to know where you think as organizations there are growth opportunities, both domestically and internationally, I think we'd all be very curious to see what you guys think those are.
I think we'll start just from an international perspective. When we look around, we have started to invest a lot of money in Africa and really focused on growing the game on the continent. We want the next superstar international player. We have a lot of, the last 6 MVPs were all international. So even what Yao Ming was for China, we want to continue to develop talent and have them become these superstars in our league. So that's sort of, we're spending a lot of time and effort and focus on Africa from a consumer product standpoint, but much more so on a basketball development. We have the Basketball Africa League. In terms of product category, it's just being ready. What's the next NFT, or what is that next thing? I would say from an apparel standpoint, we're fairly saturated, but is there a new retail channel? The way consumers shop is so different than it was way back. So what is that next platform? How everybody wants things quickly. It's just really looking at how can we continue to innovate and maintain our core business, but have these options be incremental.
And Tony, Angie, same thing for NFL?
Yeah, I go similar. As well as I would say over the past few years, really kind of creating more, product that can speak to a younger generation constantly. So especially seeing that, NFL flag is so big. All right, what can we do, to further, get more participation or get more interest into that younger generation into football.
Yeah, on the international side, I mean, in a lot of our focus markets, we had been, very, I guess, focused on apparel and brand collaborations. So I can speak to the markets that I look after. There's a huge white space in the hardlines area. It's just not an area, we've been really focused on at this point. So that's what I would say from my side.
So I know in the audience there are several attorneys, licensing agents, consultants, licensees. What are some of the takeaways that you want them to go back and that you want the licensees to take away from this, or the agents and consultants that are working with licensees?
I guess think outside the box. Traditional products, we have a slew of those. It's really thinking about what is the next opportunity, like Lisa had mentioned. So whether, I'm talking more on the hardline side, I'm talking about what is that focus or what is that bigger market on, a 0 to 80, that we can connect with our fans, at any point.
Lisa?
Just how do you differentiate when you look at our portfolio of licensees? What makes you stand out? What makes you different, and what makes you incremental? And
I'd say never underestimate the power of relationships. I think they're so important in our business. So that's what I'd say.
So I always end with some words of wisdom, and I'm actually going to quote one of my sports licensing models as a player and as a businessman, Carl Banks. I did a panel in Las Vegas at the Tailgate Show with Carl Banks, and at the end of the session, I asked him, what's your advice for our audience? And he says, once you get going on that track, keep looking forward and keep going. There's a reason the front windshield is this big and the rear view mirror is this big. Don't look back, keep going forward. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.